Rudi was a human being born as male. After 53 years of his life, he had a perception that true men possess certain qualities missing in ordinary men or women. True men were strong and would always become leaders of weak men and women. Rudi had met many weak men, and he never liked them. In other words, within Rudi, there is a thick layer of possessiveness to the concept of manliness. How would the trials of life to retake Rudi's possessiveness to the concept of masculinity manifested? Since adolescence, Rudi realized that he had quite a charm to the opposite sex. Girls, more often than not, would accept his advances towards them. Naturally, this reality gave birth to pride inside his heart. A truth, one might say, already proven by his experience in life. There are few humans who realize, though, that pride born out of satisfactions or successes such as this was quite a potential seed for the nafsu of possessiveness to grow inside human hearts. In college, Rudi had two friends, Yoga and Susie. Yoga always followed Rudi wherever he went, while Susie was a woman he admired. As usual, Rudi, without hesitation, professed his admiration to Susie. Unfortunately, Susie rejected him. He was disappointed, but still managed to accept it without any hard feelings. Until one day, he found out that Susie apparently chose Yoga over him. To Rudi's eyes, Yoga was not a man he considered equal. He always backtracking his decisions in everything. There were countless occasions where Rudi had to step up and help him out of trouble. The truth that Susie would choose Yoga over him was quite difficult to digest. This was life's trials for Rudi, an opportunity for him to let go of the possessiveness to the concept of masculinity within his mind. A misunderstanding, as if only characteristics he possessed were to have a chance to attract the opposite sex. In the past, in every rejection or acceptance from the girls he chased after, Rudi actually could choose whether to face it using fitrah or nafsu. Unfortunately, he preferred to choose nafsu over fitrah. Therefore, when faced to the reality that Susie would choose Yoga over him, he had difficulties to accept it sincerely without any resentment. At this point, Rudi was again given another choice how to face the bitter truth. Would he use nafsu and blame Susie, who for whatever reasons could not see his qualities over Yoga, or use fitrah instead and started to realize that there were still so many qualities of human beings that he was not aware of in this world? Opening up his mind, maybe, to things that were still beyond his understanding. Choices taken by Rudi at this point in his life would influence the life's trials manifestation, which would visit him in the future. One, nafsu is an existence that inseparable from human beings. 2. challenges for humans in life is not trying to erase nafsu, but instead to control it so it doesn't corrupt their hearts and actions. 3. To control nafsu, humans must recognize its influence within themselves, in thoughts and actions, before attributing it to other people's actions. "25 years later, Rudi joined Facebook. This particular social media was popular among his colleagues. At first, Rudi chose to follow this trend only because he wanted to connect with his friends from the past. But then, after 2 months, he finally started to actively contribute in the social media. Rudi had found a new world to explore. Let's say that in the past, Rudi did not quite succeed in facing Susi's decision to choose yoga over him, with a heart free of nafsu's meddling. Let's say his inability to let go of his pride at the time had already taken permanent residence in his heart. In this condition, slowly but sure, Rudi was actually fertilizing an affliction to the heart, which would give birth to wrong deeds in the future, sooner or later. In real life, those seeds of heart diseases can manifest into many shapes. These are only some of the possibility. 1. Rudi possesses a measure of hatred against people who remind him of yoga. 2. Rudi possesses a measure of dislike to people who look like Susi. 3. Rudi possesses a need to oppress men he considers weak. 4. Rudi is sensitive and quick to anger to any discussion regarding masculinity. 5. Rudi possesses a tendency to be hostile against people who have different opinion of manliness from him. In short, Rudi will tend to believe that he possesses a monopoly to what qualities constitute a real man. These tendencies will show themselves whenever Rudi faces life's trials with certain characteristics, such as 1. His hatred towards yoga can be triggered whenever he meets someone who acts like yoga in real life. 2. His dislike to Susi can be triggered whenever he meets women who reminds him of Susi. 3. His needs to oppress will be triggered whenever he is in position of power over other people. 4. His sensitivity to the definition of real man will show whenever there is a debate over what characters represent true masculinity. 5. Hostility toward difference in opinions will be triggered whenever he meets other people with different perspective of life. In real world, the probability of each of those conditions to be met perhaps only happens several times a year, but that is not the case in virtual world. If Rudi is actively socializing in social medias and interacting with thousands of people every day, then the probability of life's trial to happen will be monumental and repeat itself quite numerously. This is what it means when it is said the existence of social media is an acceleration of life's trials for human beings. In real world, there is small probability for Rudi to meet men who reminds him of yoga. In virtual world, on the contrary, he can see 2 to 3 people who meet those conditions every single day. In real world, women whose face look like Susi or act like her maybe will appear once or twice in Rudi's life. In the virtual world though, there are many women who can trigger his bitter memories of Susie every day. In real world, weak men who are under his power probably consist of his direct subordinates in the office, his drivers, his helpers, his gardeners, and other people who interacts with him face to face and possess somewhat lower social statuses. But in the virtual world, only by hiding his identity, Rudi can oppress anyone he considers weak, without ever needing to worry about the consequences in the real world. The same applies to all kinds of discussions about masculinity. He can disregard every single norm in the real world and manifests all thoughts born out of nafsu's control over his heart. Every disease in his heart he buried all this time without afraid of the consequences. Few humans realize that every single action, including those in the virtual world, is also being judged as actions which bore consequences before the Almighty. The data and information in the virtual world is only sets of digital numbers of 0 and 1, true, but every single decision humans take before saying or typing anything there actually also passes through the outer physic, thoughts, minds, feelings, and spiritual hearts. Therefore, whenever humans do it under the control of nafsu, then they are considered failed in that particular trial of life. On the contrary, if they manage to use fitra, then they will be able to cleanse their hearts from nafsu's contaminations. The advancement of information technology, including social media, is a double-edged sword to every individual using it. An opportunity to raise their level of faith speedily if they manage to always use fitra, but also a risk to fall even lower under the influence of nafsu. The choice how to use it is within every individual's hand.